There is a housing story in Africa that deserves far more attention. In this video, I'll show you the world's largest social housing city, Kilamba, Angola, like you've never seen it before. We'll explore this extraordinary high-rise city outside Luanda, where hundreds of residential towers rise across a vast planned landscape of wide avenues, beautiful landscaping, and modern infrastructure. We'll take you through the neighborhoods to see the quality of the buildings, the scale of the development, and what everyday life looks like inside a city built to house a huge population. We'll also discover why Kilamba has attracted international attention, how Angola managed to build such a massive urban development, and why this project stands apart from China's enormous social housing system. This is an African country building a modern high-rise city on a scale that can compete with the world's megacities. At a time when cities across the developing world are struggling to provide affordable housing for rapidly growing populations, Angola took on the challenge at an extraordinary scale. Instead of building a small housing estate, the country planned an entirely new high-rise city capable of accommodating a huge population. The result is a development that looks less like conventional social housing and more like a modern city in its own right. The towers are arranged across carefully planned neighborhoods, with wide roads running between the residential districts and landscaped areas, bringing greenery into an otherwise highly urban environment. Schools, commercial facilities, utilities, and other public infrastructure were incorporated into the development, creating the foundations for people to live much of their daily lives within the same urban district. And this is where Kilamba becomes particularly interesting on the global stage. China has by far the largest overall amount of affordable and social housing in the world, but its housing is spread across thousands of developments and cities throughout the country. Angola took a very different approach. Here, an enormous concentration of social housing was brought together into a single planned development on a scale that is difficult to comprehend from the ground. The first major phase alone delivered around 20,000 apartments across approximately 710 buildings. That is not simply a housing project. It is a city-scale development. Academic studies, planning research, and international reports have examined Kilamba and documented the extraordinary scale of what was built here. The project became an important part of Angola's post-war reconstruction and one of the clearest examples of the country's ambition to rapidly transform its urban landscape. And there is something particularly striking about seeing it in person. The high-rise towers continue across the horizon, while wide avenues, landscaped spaces, and carefully planned neighborhoods create a sense of order rarely associated with developments of this magnitude. For an African country facing a huge housing challenge, this was an ambitious attempt to demonstrate that large-scale urban development could be done differently. Kilamba also challenges a perception that modern, high-quality high-rise living is something that developing countries must simply import from elsewhere. Here in Angola, the country built its own vision of a modern residential city. The significance goes beyond the buildings themselves. Africa is urbanizing at an extraordinary pace, and cities across the continent will need millions of additional homes in the coming decades. The challenge will be finding ways to provide those homes while also creating transportation networks, schools, commercial districts, green spaces, and the infrastructure required for a decent quality of life. Kilamba provides a fascinating case study for that future. The international conversation about African cities often concentrates on population growth, overcrowding, and infrastructure problems. Those challenges are real, but there is another side to Africa's urban story, a story of countries experimenting with entirely new ways of building cities for the future. Kilamba is part of that story. An African country looked at the enormous demand for housing around its capital and decided to think on the scale of a megacity. Because Kilamba demonstrates something that matters far beyond Angola.
So we're going to try to get something to eat over there. We'll just sit out and have some fun.
Let's go for barragem.
An African country has proven that large-scale, modern urban development can be done, and as the world's cities continue to grow, that lesson could become increasingly important. This is Kilamba, Angola, a remarkable experiment in building a modern African city at extraordinary scale.